Emma arrived at her aunt's house, feeling the warmth of holiday lights and the buzz of chatter around her. The Christmas Eve gathering had always been a family tradition, a night filled with laughter, food, and shared stories. She had been looking forward to it, eager to reconnect with everyone before the big reunion the next day. As she grabbed a glass of punch, she smiled at her cousin Lily and said, "I can't wait for the family reunion tomorrow. It's been years since we've all been together like this." The moment the words left her mouth, the room felt eerily silent. Conversations halted mid-sentence, and awkward glances were exchanged. Lily's face turned pale as she averted her eyes. Emma's uncle suddenly became very interested in stirring his drink, while her aunt coughed as if trying to break the tension. Emma's heart pounded. Why is everyone acting so weird? She chuckled nervously. "What?" she asked, looking around. "Did I say something wrong?" Lily hesitated before mumbling. Emma, you weren't invited." Emma's smile froze. "What?" Lily bit her lip and looked down, as if ashamed to say it. "I thought you knew." The blood drained from Emma's face. This had to be a mistake. How could she, a part of this family, not be invited to the reunion? She let out a shaky laugh. "You're joking, right?" But no one laughed. Instead, there was only more silence. Her chest tightened. "Who decided that?" she demanded, her voice sharper now. Her mother, who had been standing nearby, suddenly looked guilty. "Emma, it's not that simple." Emma stared at her, stunned. Not that simple. This was her family, her blood. What could possibly justify excluding her? She could feel the sting of humiliation rising in her throat. Her mind raced through possibilities. Had she done something wrong? Offended someone? Or had they simply decided she wasn't important enough to be there? The holiday party was still going on around her, but for Emma, it felt like she was suddenly standing in a room full of strangers. One thing was clear. She needed answers, and Emma's heart pounded as she stared at her mother. "Not that simple," she echoed, her voice tight with disbelief. "What does that even mean?" Her mother shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the others as if looking for help. But no one spoke. No one even met her eyes. Frustration surged through Emma's veins. "Someone, please, just tell me the truth," she demanded. "Who decided I wasn't welcome? And why?" Her father sighed, rubbing his temples. "Emma, don't make a scene." That did it. The humiliation twisted into anger. "A scene," she snapped. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize expecting an invite to my own family's reunion was unreasonable." Her aunt, Patricia, cleared her throat. "Emma, look, it's not personal. We just thought it'd be better this way." Emma turned to her sharply. "Better for who?" Patricia hesitated. "For the family." Emma let out a hollow laugh. "Right. So, I'm not part of the family now." Her brother, Jacob, finally spoke up. "Emma, just drop it. It's done." Something inside her cracked. "No, I won't just drop it." She took a deep breath, struggling to keep her voice steady. "I deserve to know why I'm being pushed out like this." Jacob exchanged a glance with their mother before muttering, "You always make things difficult, Emma. You don't exactly fit in with everyone anymore." The words hit her like a slap. Fit in. Was this about her career? Her choices? She had always been a little different. She pursued her own dreams, had different opinions, and wasn't afraid to call things out when they were unfair. But had that really made her an outcast? Her mother finally sighed, voice laced with guilt. "Emma, please. This is just how it is." Her fingers curled into fists at her sides. "No. This is how you decided it would be." The betrayal cut deep. These were the people who were supposed to love her unconditionally. And yet, they had chosen to exclude her, to pretend she didn't exist when it suited them. Emma swallowed the lump in her throat. "You know what? Fine." Her voice shook, but her resolve was firm. "If you don't want me there, I won't be." She turned on her heel and walked toward the door, leaving behind the whispers, the pitying looks, and the family who had just made one thing painfully clear. She wasn't one of them anymore. Emma stormed out of the living room, her head spinning. The weight of the rejection sat heavy in her chest. How could they do this to me? She needed answers, and she wasn't leaving without them. She found her younger cousin, Daniel, standing near the staircase, shifting uncomfortably. He had been quiet the whole night, avoiding her gaze like the rest. But unlike the others, He actually looked guilty. "Daniel," she said firmly, stepping in front of him. "Tell me the truth. Why wasn't I invited?" His eyes darted around, as if making sure no one else was listening. He sighed. "Emma, I don't think you want to know." Her jaw clenched. "I think I do." Daniel hesitated, but finally mumbled, "It was Melanie." Emma's stomach twisted. Of course. Melanie, her older cousin, had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in the family's eyes. She had wealth, influence, and the ability to control the family's opinions like a puppet master. Emma narrowed her eyes. "What did she say?" Daniel sighed again, lowering his voice. "She told everyone that you don't bring anything positive to the family anymore. That you're too different now. Too outspoken." Emma felt a cold rush of anger. "And they just went along with it." Daniel nodded, looking ashamed. "She said you always start drama and make things uncomfortable for everyone. That it would be easier if you weren't at the reunion this year." Emma scoffed. "Easier? For who?" Daniel hesitated before saying, "Melanie's been saying that ever since you stopped playing along with the family. Ever since you started standing up for yourself." Emma's mind flashed back to past arguments. She had called out unfair treatment before, when her parents favored Jacob, when Melanie acted superior, when certain family members made snide comments about her life choices. And every time, they had told her she was overreacting or too sensitive. So, this was their solution? Just erase her from the family gathering altogether? Emma clenched her fists. "I should have known." Daniel looked down. "I'm really sorry, Emma. I didn't think it was fair either." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. She wouldn't let them win. If they thought she would just disappear quietly, they were dead wrong. Emma wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. That Emma's heart pounded as she absorbed Daniel's words. Melanie, the puppet master of the family, controlling everyone's perception of her. Emma had always known her cousin had influence, but to erase her from a family reunion? That was next level. And her family just went along with it. She wasn't sad anymore. She was furious. Taking a deep breath, Emma turned to Daniel. "You said you didn't think it was fair. Then help me." Daniel's eyes widened. "What? How?" She smirked. "I'm going to that reunion." Daniel paled. "Emma, if they find out I helped, no one will know." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "But I need you to tell me where it is, and when everyone is arriving." Daniel hesitated, but after a long pause, he sighed. "Fine. But what are you going to do?" Emma's smile didn't waver. "Crash the party, and make sure they regret ever leaving me out." The reunion was set at an expensive private venue. Of course, Melanie wouldn't settle for anything less. Emma arrived early, dressed to impress. If they expected her to slink away in defeat, they were in for a surprise. She strolled into the grand hall, where laughter and music filled the air. The decorations were extravagant, the buffet spread luxurious. All of it planned while pretending she didn't exist. Emma spotted her family in the center of the room, chatting away like nothing was wrong. Then she saw Melanie, standing near the podium, a glass of champagne in hand, basking in the attention. Emma smirked. "Perfect." Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. "Wow, what a lovely reunion." Silence. Heads turned. Gasps echoed. Melanie nearly choked on her drink. Emma crossed her arms, feigning innocence. "Oh, what's wrong? You all look like you've seen a ghost." Her mother's face turned pale. "Emma, what are you doing here?" Emma tilted her head. "What do you mean? This is a family reunion, isn't it? And last time I checked, I'm part of this family." Melanie recovered quickly, stepping forward with a fake smile. "Emma, darling, there must have been a misunderstanding." Emma cut her off, voice sharp. "Oh, no misunderstanding. I know exactly why I wasn't invited, and I intend to fix that." The air grew tense. This was just the beginning. The tension in the room was suffocating. Emma stood tall, her heart pounding, but she refused to show any hesitation. They wanted her gone, erased from the family gathering like she didn't matter. But she was here now, and she wasn't going anywhere. Melanie recovered from her initial shock, forcing a sweet but obviously fake smile. "Emma, let's not cause a scene. This is a special day for the family." Emma crossed her arms. "Oh, I agree. A special day where certain people decided to rewrite who is and isn't part of this family. Whispers spread through the crowd. Some looked uncomfortable. Others were curious. Melanie's grip on her champagne glass tightened. Emma turned to her mother. "Tell me, Mom, when exactly did you decide that I wasn't worth inviting?" Her mother flinched. "Emma, please, we just didn't want conflict." Emma let out a sharp laugh. "Conflict? So, rather than deal with whatever problem you think I bring, you all just cut me out? That's your solution?" Jacob, her brother, sighed dramatically. "Emma, you're overreacting." Her gaze snapped to him. "Am I? Because I'd love to hear you explain how excluding me from the reunion was supposed to be reasonable." Silence. Then, Emma turned her focus to the real mastermind. "Melanie, or maybe I should just ask you." She took a step closer. "Since you were the one pulling the strings." Melanie's expression darkened, but she still feigned innocence. "Emma, I don't know what you're talking about." Emma smirked. "Really? Because Daniel told me everything." A flicker of panic crossed Melanie's face. "Gotcha." The whispers grew louder. People were starting to piece things together. Emma wasn't done. "You told everyone I bring nothing positive to the family. That I don't fit in anymore. You convinced them it would be easier if I wasn't here. Why?" Melanie hesitated, glancing around, realizing there was no easy way out. "Because you ruin everything, Emma," she finally snapped. "You always have something to say. You call people out, make things uncomfortable. We wanted a peaceful reunion." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I see. So, because I don't just silently accept the family's nonsense, I'm the problem?" Melanie folded her arms. "You never know when to let things go." Emma took a deep breath, then spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "No. I just refuse to let people treat me like I don't matter." The room fell into an awkward silence. Emma glanced around at the relatives who had gone along with Melanie's plan. Some looked ashamed. Some refused to meet her eyes. But no one spoke up to defend Melanie. "Good." Emma smiled, a quiet victory burning in her chest. She wasn't finished yet. Melanie's confident smirk was gone. She shifted uncomfortably, realizing that the tide was turning. The family wasn't laughing or brushing Emma off like usual. They were listening, and that was dangerous for her. Emma let the silence stretch, letting the weight of her words settle. Then she turned, her sharp gaze sweeping across the room. "Let's be honest here," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "I wasn't excluded because I bring conflict. I was excluded because I stopped tolerating disrespect." Her parents looked away. Jacob ran a hand over his face. A few aunts and uncles exchanged nervous glances. Melanie scoffed. "Oh, please, Emma. Stop acting like a victim." Emma smirked. "I'm not a victim. I'm just not a fool." Melanie's jaw tightened. "You're always so dramatic." Emma let out a laugh. "Right. That's what you call it when someone refuses to be treated like garbage. I call it self-respect." A few people in the crowd murmured in agreement. Emma saw one of her younger cousins nodding slightly, eyes wide with admiration. "Good. Let them see. Let them learn." Melanie, sensing her control slipping, tried a different tactic. "Honestly, Emma, why do you even care? You always act like you're too good for us anyway." Emma's eyes flashed. "Too good? No, Melanie. I just refuse to play by your rules." She turned back to the rest of the family. "And honestly, I don't even care about this stupid reunion anymore. I care about the fact that not one of you had the courage to tell me to my face that I wasn't invited. You all just went along with it. More shifting. More guilt. The power dynamic was shifting, and they all felt it." Emma sighed, shaking her head. "You know what? I should be thanking you all." Melanie narrowed her eyes. "For what?" Emma smiled. "For finally proving to me that I don't need to waste any more energy trying to be part of this family." A stunned silence. Her mother's face fell. "Emma, that's not." Emma raised a hand, stopping her. "No. I'm done trying to force something that clearly isn't there." She turned toward the exit, her posture strong, her head held high. "You all made your choice. Now I'm making mine." And with that, she walked away, leaving them standing in the wreckage of their own betrayal. But she wasn't done yet. Oh no, not yet. Emma walked out of the grand hall, her heartbeat steady. For the first time in years, She felt free. No longer chasing approval, no longer waiting for scraps of affection from a family that had no problem pretending she didn't exist. But she wasn't naive. They weren't going to let her leave without a fight. And she was right. Just as she reached the entrance, she heard hurried footsteps behind her. "Emma, wait!" She paused but didn't turn. The voice belonged to her mother. "Emma, please," her mother said, breathless as she caught up. "Don't just walk away like this." Emma slowly turned, raising an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Like someone who just found out her own family doesn't want her around." Her mother sighed. "That's not true." Emma crossed her arms. "Oh, really? Then tell me, Mom, who fought for me to be included, who stood up and said, 'Hey, this isn't right.'" Silence. Her mother's lips parted, but no words came out. That was the answer. Emma nodded, smiling bitterly. "Exactly." From the corner of her eye, she noticed Daniel standing a few feet away, looking uncomfortable. He wasn't the only one. Some of her cousins, and even an aunt had stepped outside, no doubt curious to see how this played out. Then, another voice joined in. "Emma's right." The entire group turned. It was her younger cousin, Sarah. Sarah had always been the quiet one, the one who never caused trouble. But now, her small voice carried weight. "We all let this happen," Sarah continued, looking at the rest of the family. "We all knew it was wrong. But we stayed quiet because, well, that's just what we do, right? We let Melanie control everything." Melanie, who had just stepped outside, scoffed. "Oh, give me a break, Sarah." But Sarah didn't back down. "No, I'm done staying quiet." She turned back to Emma. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve this." Emma felt something shift in her chest. Sarah's words weren't enough to erase the hurt, but they were enough to make her pause. And then, the real twist came. Daniel, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. "Emma, I need to tell you something." She turned to him. "What?" He hesitated, glancing at their mother, then at Melanie, then back at Emma. His expression was full of guilt, like he had been carrying something heavy for a long time. "The reunion wasn't the only thing they were keeping from you." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. "What are you talking about?" Daniel swallowed hard, then said the words that would change everything. "Grandma left something for you in her will, and they hid it from you." Silence. Emma's breath caught. "What?" Melanie's expression darkened. "Daniel, shut up." But it was too late. The truth was out. Emma's world shifted, the anger in her chest igniting into something new, determination. She wasn't just walking away now. She was going to get what was rightfully hers. Emma stared at Daniel, her pulse hammering in her ears. "Say that again." Daniel shifted uncomfortably, but didn't back down. "Grandma left something for you in her will. But they hid it. They made sure you wouldn't know." Emma turned to her mother, then to Melanie. Both of them looked guilty, caught. "Tell me he's lying." Her mother averted her gaze, wringing her hands. Melanie, on the other hand, crossed her arms and scoffed. "Oh, come on, Emma. It's not that big of a deal." Emma took a step forward, her voice dangerously calm. "Not that big of a deal? You erased me from a family reunion, and now I find out you erased me from my own grandmother's will." Melanie rolled her eyes. "You always act so entitled. Grandma didn't even like you that much." Emma's jaw clenched. "That's funny, considering she called me every week until the day she died. And somehow, I doubt she would have left me nothing." Daniel sighed, stepping in. "She didn't. She left you something huge, Emma." He looked at Melanie. "And I'm tired of keeping your secrets. I won't lie for you anymore." Melanie's face twisted with rage. "You little!" But Daniel ignored her and turned back to Emma. "Grandma left you the lake house." Everything around Emma seemed to still. The lake house. The place where she spent her best summers as a kid. The place where her grandmother had told her stories, taught her how to cook, listened to her when no one else in the family would. It had been their place, and it was supposed to be hers. Emma's mother finally spoke up, her voice trembling. "Emma, please. You have to understand. Grandma was old, confused. She didn't mean to do it." Emma let out a sharp laugh. "Right. So instead of honoring her wishes, you what? Just pretended I didn't exist." Melanie snorted. "What were you going to do with it, anyway? You don't even have a family. The house would have gone to waste." Emma saw red. That house was mine. Her voice was ice. And you had no right to take it from me. She turned to Daniel. Do you have proof? Daniel nodded. I took pictures of the will before they changed it. I have everything. Emma smiled. Not the kind Melanie was used to, the kind that came before Emma let things go. No, this was different. This was the smile of someone who had just decided to burn everything down. Good. Melanie took a step back, for the first time looking nervous. Emma, let's be reasonable. Emma tilted her head. Reasonable? Oh, I think I've been more than reasonable. She turned to the rest of the family, her voice loud and clear. You all went along with this. You all stayed silent. But I'm done being the one you walk all over. Then, she turned back to Melanie, her voice steel. I hope you enjoyed your little scheme. Because now, I'm taking back everything you stole from me. And with that, Emma walked away, not just from the reunion, but toward a battle she was more than ready to win. 3 months later, Emma stood on the porch of her lake house, breathing in the crisp air. She had won. Daniel's evidence had been airtight. With legal pressure mounting, her mother and Melanie had no choice but to admit what they had done. The will had been altered, but the original was undeniable. The house had always been hers. Melanie had fought, of course, screamed, insulted, played the victim. But in the end, there was nothing she could do. For once, Emma had been the one with power. Her mother had begged her to keep the peace, to let things go, to forgive, to return to the family like nothing had happened. Emma had simply smiled and said, There is no family. And now, standing in the place her grandmother had loved, Emma felt something she hadn't in years. Peace. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Daniel, still can't believe you actually did it. Proud of you, Em. I'll come visit soon. She smiled. At least one person in the family had chosen the right side. Emma took one last look at the lake, the water glistening under the afternoon sun. She had spent her whole life chasing family. Now, she was building her own. On her terms. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel alone. She felt free.